Hi, this time I would like to talk to you from my nurse's notes. This is Mary Huber. I'm a registered nurse and also the president of the Community Center for Holistic Healing, as well as Reverend in the Community Chapel of Holistic Healing. I want to share with you some insights I have about humanity today and how you could be helped by using something very natural in your life. The healing that any one of us require at any given time in our life does require self management as part of it, as we all know. Our part in our healing process is directly under our care. Physicians can assist with various interventions which medical science provides. And when our ailments go beyond what we can handle, they are critical in our recovery to health. No one should avoid medical care. My advice as a nurse is to help people to use every avenue available, and of course, as I alluded before, the individual's own natural means as well as internal sources. All healing comes from within. I learned that way back in the 1950s when I was in nursing school. I have seen that validated many times over my 50 years in nursing practice. So, my role is to help an individual to be acquainted with a spectrum of self help tools. I'm not going to go into the topic here of human nutrition, and because that subject is very well covered in many places with many books, and it has individual needs when it comes to human nutrition that general advice wouldn't apply to necessarily everyone because each one has their own version of imbalance. There are people to help you with that understanding if you need nutritional help. I could start in many different places, but today I chose to go to the subject of color, which might seem unusual to you, but color is actually an agent of healing when understood as such. Some of this information is already incorporated into medical care, and some, probably a great body of it, is not. So just know that all life on Earth depends on the radiant energy coming from the sun, which is a fact well studied in your basic courses in physics. The electromagnetic spectrum is the range of all possible radiation frequencies, which includes various kinds of electromagnetic radiation from the sun, such as ultraviolet rays and X rays. But in the visible form of light energy that can only be seen by the naked eye, that is a type of electromagnetic energy. And visible light energy is composed of a spectrum of colors, each of which corresponds to a specific wavelength and frequency. And you're all familiar with the prism and how that refracts into the colors of the rainbow. So you're very aware of that. So embedded in pure light, in the sunlight coming in, is every color within that light. And all living organisms rely on light as the sole source of food generation, with the exception of some chemotrophic organisms, such as bacteria. All organisms require light for energy and sustenance. Now, color in the various components of light, which can be measured in frequencies. The human eye can only see 40% of the rays of light in the visible spectrum. So there's much that we cannot see. And as humanity's brain develops more and as our capacity to relate to a larger, I guess, world at large, and as we evolve as humans, I think that spectrum is going to expand. But color, as you know, is to sight as hearing is to sound, or as sound is to hearing, I should say. Sorry about that. Both are vibrational movements of the universe. As energy waves, both are capable of reflection, refraction, and interference. Color has always been honored with symbolic designations as well. In various cultures throughout time, each culture had a particular color that was valued more than anyone other by their royalty. Now, an much older book by Faber Biren called Color, a Survey in Words and Pictures from Ancient Mysticism to Modern Science. That book tells that story about the use of color in royalty, as well as during other periods of time where with the general population and what they had access to. Now, in ancient cultures, color was used as part of healing. The modern world has knowledge of frequencies and knows how to use them using devices for many purposes, including healing. Now, you're familiar with many of the machineries that are used, the ultrasonic and all of those newer mechanisms developed by science for medical use. And in the future, maybe a ways down the road yet, actually color and sound will be used much more often in healing. So we're going to get a little bit of a jump on that today. So since humanity does have a relationship to color, as we noted, it reflects very clearly in their thinking and feeling. Now, I want to go to Dorothea Mella's book, The Language of Color, where she very eloquently documented these reactions of people with color. She has created a test using only a nonverbal language of color as her way to evaluate the individual at the time they presented themselves to her for counseling. It proved to be a remarkably accurate tool. The material featured here today comes from her book. So my topic specifically today is to incorporate the understanding that we have the capacity and the capability to use our mind to direct color as a tool to successfully help us heal in many different ways. Now, if you've ever taken yoga, there are many little exercises that are done within that scope of that discipline, and you might be familiar with using the breath as part of the balancing of the body-mind system. And today I'm going to offer to you a breathing exercise using color, which will help many people accelerate a healing process. And the color I have selected, because I believe most of humanity definitely could use this particular color, is orange. Now, first, I want to remind you that the penetrating radiant energy from the sun coming directly through the planet and, of course, through our own bodies contains all of the colors, and we are selectively using these colors on which to focus to elevate an experience. Each color has its own frequency, as we have mentioned, and this particular orange frequency is very elevating. The signal that it sends throughout the body can be amplified by our mind. If you are a student of Edgar Cayce, you know that mind is the builder. As we think, so we become. That axiom was very well known to most ancient cultures. So today, we will exercise that capability. Now, orange is not a selection as a favorite by many people. My first acquaintance with this powerful color was in the early 1970s when I was going through a very traumatic time, being very upset and anxious. I was introduced at that time to a circle of women who had decided to get together because each one of us knew the author of the book I'm using today, Dorothea Mella, but we did not know each other. So when we all came together as a group, I went there with my particular problem and received a very special gift of healing from these, well, actual strangers to me at the time, because it was our first meeting. They sat me down and circled around me and decided to project the color orange to me. And I sat quietly in their midst, and as I was receiving, I began to feel lighter and much better and more settled and put together, kind of. So it was a very wonderful experience. And I want you to know that I do recognize that just sitting with a group of compatible people is very helpful as well. And from my experience, I want you to really remember that it is rarely one element at play in the process of any form of healing. I've always noticed this in many times in my nursing practice. Now, since you will be by yourself in the process of using orange, you will deliver the color in a more creative way to yourself. This is where color breathing comes in. And so let me explain. You will use your imagination. Now, imagination is the gift each of us has. It's a gift from God that absolutely everyone has, with which we all create everything in our life. Even Einstein acknowledged that imagination was more powerful even than knowledge. Your ability to image and focus is one of your greatest tools when you use it correctly. I will caution you now that you will do this exercise with an element of reverence and respect because you're going within yourself, your own spiritual being, and you're engaging with it. And it's a very profound request to your inner being to allow this exercise to be effective. Your inner world is where you contact your creator who deserves your reverence. And this is why we begin as we do. So in the exercise, you begin by putting yourself in a quiet, undisturbed place where you're comfortable. You allow yourself to begin to relax and let go of all the worries about your condition, about the world, about what's going on around you. This is something to disconnect and be quietly by yourself, with yourself. Now, after you have settled down a bit, set your intention. And this is done by sending a prayer to your Creator, a request that this time be given to you to connect with your inner physician, which in fact is Christ. You desire this connection and ask that all other influences around you would be cleared away. So you're clearing your space, you're setting your intention, and you're going within to a very high level of your own spiritual part of yourself, your real self. You're going back into the spiritual nature you are. Now that you have set your intention and have placed yourself in the right place or position to go within, with your eyes closed, imagine that you can see the color orange. Now, you might need to have had to look for an example of the color because that's very helpful if you can't quite bring it to mind right away. So I would expect that you could get an actual orange, which would be handy, or a picture of the color orange. So whatever works in your life. So, because if your imagination can't pull it up right away, you can look at the color, close your eyes, and reimagine it within your closed eyes. And you might need to do this several times to really kind of lock it in. Now, as an added help, I'm going to suggest that you get an orange scented, maybe essential oil, and apply it to your wrist or hand and wave it in front of your nose because the sense of smell is very strongly connected to images, whether we consciously recognize that or not. It will be an additive effect. Or you can put some orange essential oil in a diffuser in the room that you're in to do this exercise. It will all be a wonderful way to get a better feeling and a better visual on the color. Now, using your imagination, having the color with the added stimulus, if you can, begin to see that you can maybe have a haze of orange and that you're breathing this color in. You might see a ray of it coming in. However your imagination wants to present it to you, go with it. And understand that you are taking it in and you're distributing it in your system in a profound way that's going to help you in many different ways. So when you're doing the breathing, you do more like a yoga breathing. You're going to breathe in the color for the count of 5. You hold it for the count of 5, and then you exhale it for the count of 5. And again, hold the breath a little bit. That's one cycle. And just do several cycles of that. Now, you can keep going as long as you are not tired and please don't exhaust yourself. You can do more cycles if you would like. And when you're finished, you end with a brief prayer of thanksgiving for the healing that you have received. Always acknowledge that you have confidence in your Creator, that your request has been filled. That's very important, that confidence in God. The entire exercise, if you back away and look at it, it is actually a very deep prayer with imagery, and it is extremely effective. Now, why would you use the color orange? I'm going to give you the description given by Dorothea Mella in her book. She gives a beautiful description of each and every color that she uses in her test. And there are many colors. There are 21 colors. Now, here is her description and reason to use the color orange. She says, orange is a color of form and design. It has warm, high energy and can make things move. It is the color of the builder, the engineer, the architect, the designer, and even marketers, where the energy is one of being a self-starter and motivator. Orange is the color of organized function. It creates the energy to get things done. And it definitely does not like clutter. I have found that the energy of orange is very uplifting and brings out one's ability to have a better outlook and a real positive energy stimulator. That's what's needed in the world, a positive energy stimulator. And it is orange. So you might try that in your life. And, unconsciously, we all know what these colors actually can do and do. We all have that subconscious level functioning from our spiritual nature. And people intuitively know without knowing they know many things. Color, then reasons for color, what color can do is one of them. Now, just as an example, you may have heard that President Trump was being called the Orange Man mostly by his detractors. And little did they know what a high compliment they were paying him. I got quite a chuckle out of that. I'll leave you with that, and I am submitting it as my nurse's notes for today. And thank you so much for being part of this.